Today we will take a look at the best racing dashboard online created by the Gonka Labs team and available on the gonka.gg website. Right now we are on our knowledge base, which is currently only available in Russian, but we will soon translate it into other languages. Here is an article about this dashboard. You will find a link to this article in the description. Let's go to the dashboard itself and see what's interesting here. Well, everything here is interesting. Let's start with the general overview and then move on to the details. So what do we see here? The top row. This price, I believe, is taken from the Hex exchange. Here's the support in Telegram. You can write there, and there's already a whole community formed. If you have any comments, suggestions, or requests, feel free to write. The guys here respond very quickly. This one, most likely they take. It's not really an informative thing. It's just information about where they get their data from. But they don't only get data from here, so you could say there's no need to show this. Epoch number, time remaining until this epoch ends. This is the option to switch to dark mode. Here are different languages, Russian and Chinese. We'll be looking at it in English now. And here is the API, meaning you can access this data through the API. You can go there and register. You can get access. Moreover, they allow you to get a fairly large amount of API access for free for testing. All right, let's move on then. So we'll go through everything step by step. So here is the basic information about what's happening, let's say, with the network. This is a very interesting metric. It shows how many rewards are distributed to each participant per unit of network weight, meaning the miners. They have equipment, and this equipment has a certain weight. For each unit of weight, this is how much they receive. 0.35, 36, 46 G and K. And here's another interesting thing. It's important for you to understand. Take a look here. Weight won't work. This is the total weight for the previous epoch, 198. Now it's 199, and before it was 198. Then epoch rewards is how many total rewards were distributed specifically in this epoch. The number of rewards is constantly decreasing, literally by, I don't remember exactly, I think about 300 rewards per day, something like that. So by some small percentage, so that after a certain amount of time, after 2 years, I think, there will be a halving, then another halving, and so on. So unlike Bitcoin, where it happens abruptly, here the rewards decrease gradually every day, little by little. Pay to miners, take a look, 261 out of 294. Why is it less? Because part of it went to the community pool, since some miners entered the epoch but did not exit. Well, anyway, on this topic, how the community pool is formed, we already have actually on another platform an article. But this is very interesting information, really. So you can see how profitable it is for miners to mine. And here we can see that this value increased by 4.9. Why did it increase? Because the total weight dropped a little, literally by 4%. Accordingly, the profitability for miners increased as the total weight decreased. Here, take a look. There is a note. If you switch to your language, whether it's Russian, Chinese, it will show this important indicator in your language as well. Here, the most important indicators are collected, and we can see that it has changed. Here it dropped by 4, here by 4.7, and here it increased by 21. So this is really great, clear information. This is also awesome. The team worked on it for a long time, and I was lucky enough to be involved in the process. So GPU, H100, medium weight, that is. In all cases, well, somehow in the AI industry, it is customary to measure the total weight, not in some abstract units, like around 798,000 of something, but they decided to measure it in H100s, meaning NVIDIA H100. These graphics cards are the most popular, and basically they are clear. Everyone understands their performance. And so measurements are made using these cards. And so what did the team do here? First, they looked at which cards, how many of these cards, the GPUs there are. Then they checked, or actually, let me even show you how they calculated it. Let's go to the page here. Nonsense, right? Probably. Yes, right here. Take a look. NVIDIA H100 here, 2,683 cards make up 58.5%. Then they looked over here as well, over here. So as you can see, NVIDIA H100 here, 253.1. Now we're looking at the chart. Here, the median weight. What is a median? It means you take, let's say, the entire list. All the models, these H100s, all the weights of this H100 model, and then you don't discard them, but you take the middle value. In the middle, let's say there are 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. Well, accordingly, the median value is 300. Well, that's just a rough example. In reality, the differences are much smaller, but this is a fairly accurate value on such a large sample of 2,500. It's actually very precise. And here you can see how it changed. You see it changed by 0.7% from the previous epoch. So it's determined quite accurately. And right here, if we go back to the overview, this is exactly what it shows. This is the median value. And it truly appears to me personally that this is the exact and essential performance metric that should be carefully presented and explained to all potential investors. So 3000 H100 GPUs, and it's by this metric that we should try to catch up with OpenAI, which has about 1 million of these GPUs. And for now, we only have about 3,000, but everything is achievable. At one point, I calculated that if we grow by 5% per day, we will reach that number in 81 days. Maybe not 81, maybe more, but still this number is achievable with the right math, with the right growth model. So let's continue. So this is a really cool thing. You need to keep an eye on it, and it's actually very interesting to watch. Participants, these are the people who provide computing power for rent, or rather not for rent, but for the network. These are miners or hosts, as they're also called. So the number of participants, the number of members that is people with unique addresses, unique wallets. Next, we'll be looking at many of these points, actually at all of them except for GPU. There are separate pages for them, and we'll come back to those as well. So inference. Well, right now, inference, there are some configuration issues, so this table isn't very representative at the moment. But still, it's been done very well for the future. So down here, we have the top GPU, but that's already broken down into categories, such as smaller countries, like which countries only have, say, male, no, and also which models are used. If only one model is used, why there are more than one here, only God knows. The data center, this is probably interesting for those who want to mine. If we expand this, we can see where people are making purchases. The only thing to understand about the equipment is that it's not M, but there's no vacuum for this. That is, sometimes it happens that the module on which the most expensive component is installed is MLOD2. This equipment is for 600 and even 200. Other cards are bought in one place, while servers are ordered elsewhere. For example, with Hetzner, it seems they don't even have suitable GPUs, yet they still occupy 34% of the network, and G-Core also has a lot of this equipment. So HostKey is a Russian organization that has offices not only in Russia, but as far as I know, they don't have GPUs either. So apparently these are servers rented specifically for network node. All right, well, for those who are knowledgeable, you might find it interesting to take a look. So Gonga token transfer values. I have no idea what that is, unfortunately. Maybe if you know, write it in the comments. Now, countries. This is quite an interesting thing. And here probably you can, or maybe you can't. There was a map somewhere where you could take a look, but maybe we'll see it in some other report. United Kingdom has the most. Canada, United States, Finland, Germany, Russia 18, China 10. France is here, and then the rest are within the margin of statistical error. All right, let's move on. We've looked at this. So overview, that was the overview. Inference map. Let's take a look. This is an interesting thing. Guys, look, they put a second one. Apparently they really like it themselves. This animation, yes, these are the countries, this is the sea. And this is how inference moves. Here, somewhere in Norway probably, are the main validator nodes. What is this? Where is it here? Node 1, yes, this is the main node. Node 2. Yeah, well, that's cool. All right, well, maybe it's fun to play around like this, but let's move on now. Work. Scaling the kit to 1,000. The distribution data shows exactly 118 GPUs, and that is the total number of GPU cards available. So moving on to GPUs, this is the table that I probably use most often. The filters here are very convenient, but that's if I need something specific for a particular model, for example. You can select everything, deselect everything, then select just one model and see what it had. The median weight value. Maybe there were two models, but here it seems that for some reason these models were absent from the scene before. All right, but this thing here, this is interesting. Let's select everything right here. I'm specifically interested in how many models there are, or rather which GPUs were used compared to the previous epoch. That is, how does the number of GPUs change? Well, here we can see that the number increased by as much as 118%. The RTX 6000 decreased a little, and the 140 gigabyte increased by 50%. Well, that's unclear. There's a suspicion that this is somewhat related to cheating because these models practically don't contribute anything at all. Now, are there just some crumbs left for the GNK? Still, from this table, you can definitely say something important. The physical quantity, which is to say the total number of GPUs, is being counted here. This is honestly the coolest table in the entire set. I would actually put it at the top, but it's not really essential. This is the total number of GPUs. Here it's broken down by color, looks nice. You can see that the H100s are the most numerous here, then the H200s. In second place, 11%, 4090, 47 gigabytes. Yeah, for some reason these are still enough for now, even though they don't generate any profit. So 6095 gigabytes, you can take a look. Let's move on. The community fund now, that's an interesting thing. We were just on the page where this information was displayed. Right here we saw that community pool 32,540. This is exactly the information about what funds are currently in the community pool. I hope this information is kept up to date. I would also like to see a dashboard here that shows changes over time, how much comes into or leaves the community pool during each epoch. And here, accordingly, are the wallets to which the community pool funds were distributed. The largest distribution is 20 million. That's for the company known as Bitfury originally acquired this substantial amount of 20 million GNK tokens for a total investment of several $1 million. And currently, these significant digital funds are being securely held at this specific blockchain address, some kind of smart contract, and are waiting for the opportunity to organize everything through the Ethereum network. So in general, the preparatory steps are underway. Now here's another 6,651. Which wallet was this distributed to? So the funds from the community pool are distributed based on a vote by the entire community. And here are exactly the votes based on which these funds were distributed, and they are listed here. And you can see here, which is very interesting, to which wallets and what amounts were transferred as a result of each vote. And here you can go and see what kind of vote took place at that time. All right, let's move on. By the way, there is an article about Unity pool lessons in the knowledge base, although for now it's in a different knowledge base. But over time, we'll move it here as well. So the link will be in the description for such holders. For some reason, it didn't load for me, probably because there's a lot of information plus sorting as well. Right here on this dashboard, it basically shows you a comprehensive list of all the different wallets across the entire network that currently maintain a balance above a certain specific threshold amount, 0.1, I think GNK. That's why it takes a very long time to load. Most likely we won't even see it now, but let's let it load anyway. We'll try to open something else, inference. So basically, what was the network built for? The race was built so that people could use inference at reasonable prices, close to cost, without those extra super high margins from corporations. A certain number of tokens came in, by the way. Where is it by time? But that's probably not it. We're probably talking about the last epoch, most likely. So 6, so this. So there's something a little unfinished here. There are also additional tokens that simply don't pass validation. The total amount, of course, should be 69,000. So there's still one value missing here. They weren't sent for validation, but the total number of requests to the network was 69,000. I'd like to see where the table is. With this total number of requests, how did this total number change over time? AI request over time. What does it say here? Bobsy Rubil Lake. I honestly don't understand what this means. Baby's Rubil at 17,000. So let's try to take a moment to figure it out. 98, 99, and then 0. Why exactly is it 98? Oh, I see, because now it's 99, so 98, 15 to fill. So let's look at this again very carefully to see if we can make sense of these numbers. This is probably validation, but what is this? 469, 464, and this sum here, these invalidated missed, now it's clear. This is validated, and this is not validated. But what I'm really interested in is this number. How many total requests were there, and how do they differ? By the way, this validate is also interesting information, but there are a bunch of requests that weren't sent anywhere at all. And that is precisely the reason why I personally believe that this is a much more informative way of looking at things, because even those requests that weren't sent anywhere could still be perfectly valid and correct requests. We're specifically interested in the correct ones, meaning what percentage of them went through, how close to 100% do these requests get through. Or Breda, so it was like for Buffy 04744 is here, probably these four, this invalidate place, maybe somehow the experiences are compared like this. Well, anyway, if you're interested, take a look. If you have any wishes, comments, or suggestions, just write them right here. The guys respond quickly. And if they think it's necessary, they'll fix it. So let's move on. Let's get back to our topic. Unfortunately, only holders can access this site. Unfortunately, let's reload it one more time. Maybe it'll work. Let's move on. Participants. What do we have here? These are the participants, basically miners, holders. Not these, not holders. These are the ones who provide GPUs for the network. Here's their list, and they're ranked by total weight. So the more GPUs a person has, the more weight they have. Their weight is shown in this ranking, in this table. You can see there are 5 pages. That's the number of miners in this epoch, but for some reason it's not specified here. Yeah, it's not specified here, but it is shown over here in the overview. Or you can go through all 5 pages and count them yourself. Here is information about inference by weight. So reward and last seen. Let's take a look at one of the miners. By the way, there's an arrow here. It's not obvious, but it is there. Here is some interesting information about the hardware. Of course, it would be nice to have a bit more detail, but this is what we have. Well, maybe the guys will improve this someday. Let's dive into one of the miners. Let's see what we find there. Number of participants, 121. So on that page we looked at together, there will be 121 participants. Oh, hallelujah, token holders. Here our page has opened. Here it is. Now let's take a look. 105 million, 100 million. Those are the wallets that received funds as a result of the Genesis. If I understand correctly, 4 million, 22 million, okay, 2 million. All right. But you can actually look at each of the wallets. In addition to that, you can also see the specific details of what transactions were made. Let's take a closer look at one of these wallets from the list. But the transaction is a file-based blockchain because this first transaction was made outside the blockchain as a result of the Genesis. Probably, and here there are a lot of different transactions. You can take a look, load more, and see further. All right, and you can check each and every wallet like this. Moreover, you can use the search to enter your own wallet. Just copy, paste, and see all the transactions that have occurred with that wallet. if you are currently operating as a miner on the network, you can also easily check the specific rewards you have received for each individual epoch, which is a very convenient and efficient way to track your progress. We've looked at that. Now, this is interesting. The top 10 wallets hold 85% of the total supply. 10 wallets hold 85% of the total amount. Supply. But it would be good to verify this figure. Account load total, we have. It would definitely be interesting to look at this table over time to see how many, not just 1,121. I'd also like to know how many of these accounts have more than, say, one token in their balance. It would make sense to ignore those with a smaller amount altogether. So that's how it should be done. Of course, I'd also like to work with the tables using the dashboard. So let's move on. So we've already looked at the network overview, but this one here, unfortunately, for some reason, isn't labeled. There are a lot of minor tweaks like this, and there are proposals. I guess, what do we have here? We're looking at an individual participant. And here you can see exactly how many GNK they earned during a specific epoch. What else do we see here? So the epoch number, total weight, confirmed weight, confirmation percentage, number of inferences, how this inference was processed, reward points. Here they earned 1.5 million points. So let's move on. So Polybator Break finally decided to award him his points. Well, as for the reward pulse, unfortunately, all right, let's move on to the next section regarding the proposals now. So quickly, here are the various detailed proposals that were recently submitted by the active community members. And this section right here is the actual voting process, which is indicated by the green one. So if it's marked red, it means either people voted against it or didn't vote at all, or there wasn't a quorum. Usually that's how the form is taken. Let's continue. Next, consensus. It's hard to see. The guys promised or didn't promise, but they know about the problem. Maybe consensus will be replaced, operating normally. Health history. Well, I can't say anything about this dashboard. I don't use it. Slashing. Miners now, not so long ago, starting from epoch 180, are required to provide a deposit along with their GPU. And this deposit is partially deducted in case there are any violations. And these very deductions, that's what's marked here. For those interested, any miner can check who had deductions, for what reason, when, and how much was deducted. So let's move on. Can everyone hear me? We've already gone through all the blocks here. Let's just go in order. Every few seconds, you constantly see 28, 29, and then 30, 18, 19. The blocks go in order. Average block time, as you can see, is 6 seconds and 10 milliseconds. Why isn't a block being created? Maybe I need to reload 519 now. Yeah, it's just not loading here. So 519 was there, and this many blocks have already been created since then. Maybe the guys will fix it too. But the point is, you can find out what the current block number is. And it would be nice to know right here, not just 2 months or 2 minutes ago, but the exact time and date. And if we scroll further, yeah, it's also 4. Well, maybe you can leave it like that, of course, but it would be good to know the exact time, the exact date, and even the year. Of course, let's move on to transactions. These are the transactions that took place on the network, probably local ones. That is what the guys managed to record on their servers It's taken directly from the network. Maybe, like cross-chain transfers, you'll be able to use filters like these. You can view which transactions were made from which wallets with what amounts. Now moving on, let's go to tools. We're done with dashboards. So now let's look at the tools that the team has also developed. Faucet, a fantastic feature. Very often, as it turns out, especially for beginner miners, you need to have at least some minimal amount somewhere. At least a few coins in your CNC wallet so you can sign an initial transaction. And it's precisely for these specific types of creative scenarios so that people can freely experiment without any limitations, that the team created an incredibly powerful and versatile tool. After registering, for example, by using your personal Gmail account, you will be able to clearly observe exactly how you can receive it. You can get the 0.001 CNC once every 24 hours. So go ahead and register, get it, and let's move on. The reward calculator is an awesome thing. It's underrated. Maybe many people don't know about it, but what's great is that here we'll see, though it takes a while to calculate, because it uses up-to-date data on the weight of each card. So here it's determined, see, right here, max weight, and here's the median value. This is what we look at. And based on this median value, you can roughly calculate how many rewards you received for each specific epoch. Here's how it's done. Let's take the H100, the most popular one, for example. Let's take the best server, the most popular one. It's 8 H100s. Yes, this one, 8. And now for the previous epoch, we would have received 739 GNK because the calculation is very simple. So 261.19 is the weight of one model, one card multiplied by the number of cards, which is 8, and then multiplied again by this coefficient reward per weight, which is the reward per unit of weight. We looked at it at the beginning. Here in the network overview, this indicator was shown, and that's it. So yes, let's say this is an approximate value, but it's quite relevant. In other words, it's very close to reality. Here's the project, the indicator. As we said, it's not by chance that it's on the first page and as the first dashboard, the first graph. So we've covered that, tracking. In this section, you have the ability to track specific nodes of interest, which simply means you can register your account, manually add a new node to your list, and then closely monitor its performance over time. You can achieve all of this quite easily by using this comprehensive management tool known as Node Setup. This is an interesting thing, I don't know. Has anyone tested this or not? Ideally, this tool should allow you to launch nodes without having to set everything up manually for a long time. Well, it's worth trying.